Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Management Committee meeting. We will be getting started in just a minute or two. Just a few housekeeping items. Please keep your lines on mute and keep your videos off. We will also make the recording available by the end of the week, and it will be a link, and the slides will be available in our upcoming Monday morning briefing newsletter. If you have questions, please put those in the chat. We will be monitoring it to give to Jennifer at the end of her presentation. And with that, again, I would like to thank you all for joining. I am Antoinette Barber, the Director of Communications and Utility Management Programs with AMWA. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to, I see both our chair, Marshall Brown from Aurora here, and John Zimmerman from Truckee Meadows. And so, Marshall, I would like to hand it over to you to do the introductions. You're on mute, Marshall.
Yep. Thanks, Antoinette. Again, Marshall Brown, General Manager of Aurora Water and Chair of the AMWA Management Committee. So it's my pleasure to welcome officially everybody here today. Thank you all for joining the committee meeting and the webinar that we're excited to host today about integrating Envision with EUM and advancing sustainable water infrastructure. So this session reflects the committee's ongoing commitment to spotlighting tools and strategies that we can all use to elevate our utilities' performance and resilience. So if you aren't connected to a committee, I'm going to put a little bit of a plug in here that you can go on to the AMWA website. It's a great way to be connected, to establish stronger and better and more plentiful connections to utility peers out there. So you can go onto the website in the membership portal. If anyone has an interest in joining a committee, you can just go sign up there. So as many of you know, effective utility management, the framework has been out there for a while. Many of us have been using that over the last 15 years. Through the 10 attributes and 5 keys to management success. Those were updated last year, so those who haven't been integrated in the middle of that would encourage you to go take a look at those updates. The updates originated from member utilities, and definitely appreciate all the feedback that came in to help us refine those. So today's webinar is going to explore how the two frameworks can be used together to support long-term planning, operational excellence, community engagement, etc. Would encourage everybody to participate by asking questions. You can put those in the chat and think about how you can apply some of what will be talked about today. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Nanette, ISI's Director of Engagement. Jennifer, thank you for being with us today. I'm now going to turn things over to you and turn my camera and microphone off. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity to present to your committee today. Usually first, I just ask if there are any ENVSPs. I do know ISI's president and CEO is online, so usually I ask to tell people to keep me honest, but I'm sure that he will if I slide on something. In case anybody is an ENVSP, you should be able to self-report this also for continuing education. So I thought I'd first talk a little bit about ISI and the Envision framework to give background for those who may not have heard of that before, didn't have too much information, and then look a little bit at the alignment of Envision with EUM, and then provide a few project examples of Envision projects that fit with those attributes of the effective utility management system. So Envision, or ISI, we'll back up a little bit and we'll talk about the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure. It is an education research nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., but we currently have staff all over the country. I'm located in Omaha, Nebraska. It was founded back in 2010. There were a lot of organizations looking at rating systems or frameworks for sustainable infrastructure, including ACEC, APWA, and ASCE, and they ended up coming together to form ISI, which worked with the Zofnass program for sustainable infrastructure at Harvard to formulate the Envision framework. And that first framework came out in 2012. What Envision really is, or what ISI does, is manage this Envision system, which I'll talk about. But what really happens is it brings together all of these organizations and people who are looking to make civil infrastructure more sustainable. So it's really become this hub of a unique community, building a community around these topics of sustainability and resiliency. And so we have a lot of AEC types of companies that are members, as well as government and public agencies, as well as academic institutions, and also associations that are related to all of them. The way that ISI is organized to kind of support that community is a group that handles those memberships. So if people or companies are members, there's also a credentialing program, which I'll touch on a little bit more at the end of this presentation. But in addition to the credential, there's also a fairly extensive training program, and there is a verification program if projects want to get a confirmation, basically, of that they have used the framework. I will step back for a second from that and say the Envision framework can be used for free. Anyone can create an account on the ISI website and download the manual, get an understanding of what's included in there. So there's no charge for any of that. And then the last point is that that Zofnass program that helped to originate Envision, that was with Harvard, came over to ISI in 2022. So now that research is looking a little bit more industry specific versus more of an academic view. So Envision is kind of is the main thing that ISI does, and the point of it is really this blueprint for fundamental change in how infrastructure is developed, really the entire life cycle of looking at capital project development. So everything from project initiation and formulation all the way through construction. It looks at planning, design, and construction, and it looks at operations and maintenance with an idea that planning for operations and maintenance efficiencies and resiliencies, but doesn't go into operations and maintenance per se. Some of the things that really stand out within the system are the project management aspect. So there's really a lot of procedural types of things that help project teams to collaborate, look at the measuring and reporting on the different things that are happening. So we'll touch on those a little bit more in the alignment with EUM. As I mentioned, there's a guidance manual, so that's everything in the system. You can download the guidance manual and read all the credits and criteria. There's also a project self-assessment tool. If you have an account, that's on the dashboard and it allows a project or team or an individual to ask a lot of good questions about a project. So really digging into the different aspects from a social, economic, and environmental standpoint. There's also the training and credentialing program that I mentioned, and project awards and verification and recognition if a project and a project team are interested in doing that. So now digging in a little bit to what Envision covers, the bottom line is all civil infrastructure, but we really do look across a lot of different sectors. So there are projects in transportation, land, environment, waste, energy, information, and then a lot of projects in water, including wastewater, drinking water, water distribution. So we've seen all different kinds of water projects use that, as well as a lot of those projects now that are really multi-sector. So transportation projects that have a huge stormwater component, or a land and environmental project that is, a park that has stormwater management, or, things like that. So it's not so cut and dried. It's really, covers a lot of different project types. Envision is being used around the globe. So it did start in North America, and there are a lot of projects that are verified in the United States and in Canada. There's also a lot of projects that are verified in Italy, as well as projects being verified in different areas of the world. We just had our first project in Latin America that was verified. There are projects in China that are going through verification. So it's really, being used on a very global scale at this point. If you've ever been exposed to different kinds of rating systems, it's set up pretty similarly. So it's pretty easy to understand. There are different categories. In Envision, it's quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, natural world, and climate and resilience. And within those categories, there are subcategories as well as credits. And within those credits, there are criteria that ask the questions. So they offer the types of questions that can provide guidance for project teams that are doing the project development. I'm going to flash really quickly those credits on the screen. There's no quiz over these, just to give you a quick idea, and I will touch on a few of these in more detail as I'm talking about the alignment and the projects. And just to give one quick little background on how Envision works as a rating system. So you can definitely use the framework for free. However, using the criteria, however that works best for you. If a project is going to be verified, there's a scale for each credit. It goes from at different levels that are associated with different points. So going from improved level of achievement to enhanced, superior, conserving, and restorative. And those credit levels of achievement are related to points, but they really are also related to performance goals and guidance for the sustainable improvements. Really thinking of those as incremental sustainable improvements. So a lot of times project teams are super excited and they want to go, shoot for the moon, which is excellent. And, we'd love to see that. But also realistically, sometimes project teams have to take a step back and think a little bit more about what can we do today and what can we plan for the future to do. So, going from maybe an improved level of achievement to enhanced makes sense today, and thinking about what would superior or conserving or restorative look like in the future if another project is done or related to other things that an agency are doing can start to plant seeds for things that can happen within a project overall. All of these are, all of these levels of achievement are leading up to the restorative level, which is restoring natural and social systems. So the ultimate goal, but, baby steps and get on the way to getting there is better than not going after anything at all. Envision is being applied at the state, city, agency level. We're seeing it in RFP requirements. We're seeing it in design guidelines. And if you're interested, we are just rolling out, we haven't publicly announced, but we have made live on our website, a policy map that includes 40 different policies, regulations, executive orders, ordinances, plans, all of which use Envision, have guidance around it, have incentivized the use of it, or have some requirements around it. And if there's something that we're missing, we would love to know, and we will continue to update this and add to those as we find more of those. We call them policies, but it kind of runs the gamut of anything that would, provide information about what projects would do to use Envision. All right, so right before I get into the alignment with the EUM, I wanted to talk a little bit about the project capital development process. And this is just looking at kind of overarching types of topics that are included within this process within Envision. So things like stakeholder engagement, understanding community needs, collaboration and teamwork, what's happening within design considerations, and really looking at how Envision really spans this entire process, which I mentioned earlier. And I'm going to come back to this a little bit later to show the alignment with the EUM as well. So, given that, this effective utility management initiative has really been evolving over the past 15 years, really concurrently, Envision has been embraced by more than 200 municipalities and water agencies, helping them plan, design, construct, and prepare to operate and maintain more sustainable, resilient, and equitable water infrastructure. So I looked at what these 10 attributes of effectively managed water sector utilities, which provides the clear set of reference points to help utilities maintain the balanced focus for these important operational areas. And these attributes align well with Envision categories and credits. As you can see in this overview, the 10 attributes really align across the board with the different categories. And I'm going to provide some more detailed examples in the next couple of slides. So first, related to community sustainability, the attribute notes that taking an active leadership role in promoting and organizing community sustainability improvements through collaboration with local partners. And there are a lot of credits that align with this, but two that are very specifically aligned include LD 1.1, provide effective leadership and commitment, which addresses establishing strong leadership to adequately and competently address issues around sustainability through all phases of the project. And LD 2.2, Plan for Sustainable Communities, which emphasizes that Envision is not only about doing the right project, not only about doing the project right, it is about doing the right project. Got that in the wrong order. But choosing the right project is really a critical first step to ensuring a sustainable project. And these decisions are often made very early in the planning process during project selection and identification, when Envision can be very helpful. And this credit recognizes projects where social, economic, and environmental considerations are incorporated into that selection criteria. The enterprise resiliency, related to that, the attribute notes managing risk to ensure enterprise continuity in collaboration with internal and external partners. And again, there are many credits that align with this, including CR 2.3, Evaluate Risk and Resilience, which requires a comprehensive risk evaluation to understand the potential hazards and threats and a project's vulnerability. And LD 3.3, conduct a life cycle economic evaluation, which provides incentives for and recognition of the use of sound industry accepted economic analysis to provide a better measurement of the value of the project and ultimately encourage greater levels of sustainability. The stakeholder engagement, stakeholder understanding and support attribute notes that a community dialogue helps to consider the full spectrum of impacts at all stages of decision making to a diverse set of stakeholders. And there are actually more than a dozen Envision credits that look at different ways that stakeholder engagement is encouraged. LD 1.3, provide for stakeholder involvement, very specifically focuses on that stakeholder engagement, addressing the public input process established by the owner and project team, noting that relationship building among public and key stakeholders is an important component of that engagement process, and asking the project team to map who those people are across the spectrum of engagement early in the project process. And QL 3.1, Advanced Equity and Social Justice, challenges project teams to consider how community resilience is impacted by social cohesion and provides guidance around making equity and social justice fundamental during considerations as part of the project process. And then finally, water resource sustainability looks to ensure that integrated and sustainable water resource management considers all water of value. And again, there are several credits that align with this, including RA 3.1, Preserve Water Resources, which addresses the increasing demands for fresh water by agriculture, municipal, and industrial users, and encourages project teams to consider regional water resources historically or holistically, excuse me. And NW 2.4 would protect surface and groundwater quality, which has the goal of preserving water resources by incorporating measures and preventing pollutants from contaminating surface and groundwater. It also looks toward monitoring impacts during construction and operations. And the last attribute that I looked at was this infrastructure strategy and performance. And really, the explanation of this attribute aligns with multiple credits and several that I've mentioned already. So addressing environmental justice impacts aligns with the Advanced Equity and Social Justice credit. Looking at community needs and anticipating growth looks at planning for sustainable communities, relevant community priorities, aligns with improving community quality of life. Adaptation and resilience strategies aligns with establishing resilience goals and strategies. Maintaining and enhancing the condition of all assets over the long term aligns well with plan for long-term monitoring and maintenance. And there are several others. So really that infrastructure strategy could be an Envision strategy. I also look quickly at the 5 keys to management success, and taking a look at them, there really is alignment with the keys with each of the Envision categories. So I dived in a little bit deeper to provide a little bit of a detailed example for a couple of those. So for continual improvement management, which is also referred to as Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is noted in one of the Envision credits, this can be supported by things like a gap analysis, establishment of SOPs, and implementation of best practice review. And the Establish a Sustainability Management Plan credit aligns well with this. That credit really addresses the importance of supporting the achievement of sustainability goals through a structure of plans and policies. So putting things in place early, the project teams follow and monitor. It helps to look at complex teams, make sure that responsibilities are assigned to the right people, and those things are being monitored on a regular basis. As far as measurement, there are several options for measurement during the capital delivery process. So during planning, design, and construction, but there are also guidelines related to preparing projects for measurement during operation. So things like reducing operational waste, commissioning and monitoring energy systems, and monitoring water systems, just to name a few. And these can help with that management effort to look at the adage of if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So making sure that we're going back and looking at these things after they have been designed and executed. And then finally, the strategic business planning and management reflects key community values, needs, and interests. And this often looks at the strategic planning element, and this aligns with many Envision credits, including QL 1.1, Improve Community Quality of Life, which asks project teams to identify and take into account community needs, goals, and issues. For example, if a project is locating and reviewing the most recent community planning information and assessing relevant community needs, goals, and issues, to make sure the project meets or supports those community needs. And that's, of course, the very first credit within the Envision manual. So I'll provide a couple project examples to talk about the alignment with the attributes. The first project that aligns well with the community sustainability attribute is the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So this, their project, the Treasure Island Water Resource Recovery Facility, was actually their 3rd project to earn an Envision verification. And it was verified Envision Platinum last year in 2024 because of its efforts to promote sustainable and resilient community benefits above and beyond the general standard requirements for this type of project. So that there's the idea of the incremental sustainable improvements. And The facility will generate between 156 and 357 million gallons of Title 22 recycled water for the community each year, making the project net positive compared to the baseline of 61 million gallons of water needed to operate the facility. And it will provide wastewater treatment and generate recycled water that can be used at the facility and by the community. And the new facility will also include a wetland system that conveys excess recycled water via gravity to the San Francisco Bay while creating new habitat for wildlife and providing an amenity for the community. So we do often, of course, see a lot of these projects that are really multi-benefit, where there's a water component and a recreation component and other types of components that are included that really contribute to that community sustainability. The second example is the Denver Water North Water Treatment Plant, and the fourth potable water treatment plant in their system. This one is a new 75 million gallons per day state-of-the-art facility, which supplements their aging treatment plant, the Moffett Water Treatment Plant. And this approach allowed them to reduce the Moffett capacity, which will extend its useful life for 2 more decades and provide the additional operating flexibility that they need with 4 drinking water treatment plants instead of 3. So really looking at that enterprise resilience type of attribute. The project improves adaptability and operational flexibility. It has a capability of being operated remotely to allow the plant to stay fully operational, even if there are issues requiring workers to remain off-site for a period of time. And the plant includes treatment options to optimize water quality, such as ultraviolet disinfection at each filter effluent. And the facility has been designed for future expansion and additions to the plant, so that they can, expand for their long-term operational needs. The third example is the lift station 87 at the city of Sarasota. And this project was verified silver earlier this year. It replaced or is replacing lift station 7, which had served beyond its useful life. And the new station is delivering a sustainable and resilient facility designed to last well beyond the life cycle of a typical lift station. And this is really in a vulnerable coastal community. And so they actually moved where the lift station was to make sure that it was resilient to different sea level rise and other climate concerns. But one thing that was really important to them was the stakeholder involvement. The previous lift station 7, had a long history of odor complaints and mechanical failures, sanitary sewer overflows, and so the community already wasn't very happy with that. And then they ended up having to redesign the project after it had been designed originally. So public trust had eroded by that time, and they really had an immediate need to change public perception to get this new project going. So the project team employed a really aggressive outreach campaign, including identifying stakeholders and community organizations, developing a dedicated website, creating 24-hour communication lines, and held frequent public meetings to provide opportunities to share information. They also had members of the project team co-located in office space at the project site so that members of the community were encouraged to stop by and ask questions of the project team as needed. And the community was encouraged to join regular project meetings as well. So they kind of really turned the tables on what had been a bad situation with stakeholder engagement into a good one. And then finally, the City of Santa Monica Sustainable Infrastructure Project was verified platinum in 2024. And this is an all underground advanced water treatment facility, a first of its kind to purify wastewater and stormwater for water reuse. And once treated, the advanced treated water is conveyed through existing distribution system and reused for landscape irrigation. The project aligns with the state's water supply strategy goals, as well as the state's control measures that govern municipal separate storm sewer systems and enhanced watershed management programs. And it also is helping the city meet its goal to obtain 100% of its water locally. The SWIP plays a key role in reaching that objective by capturing, recycling, treating, and beneficially reusing 1 million gallons per day of stormwater and municipal water that would otherwise be wasted. It preserves 10% of the city's water demand locally, creating a net positive impact on water quality and resources in the watershed. So I'm going to go back really quick to this capital project delivery overview, just to close the loop on how that supports long-term operational sustainability and aligns with the EUM's goals. So you can kind of see I've added these, the blue guys are the EUM attributes, and they really do have a nice alignment with the kind of different top-level ideas that come across the span of that capital delivery project process, from water resource sustainability being looked at during design considerations and construction guidance, and I would say also during site selection, enterprise resiliency being looked at as far as life cycle evaluations and design considerations, lots of stakeholder engagement components, as well as operational optimization and community sustainability. And with that, I just wanted to give a quick plug for the Envision Sustainable Professional Credential. There are more than 10,000 ENVSPs worldwide, and if you'd like more information about that, you can create a free account at ISI's website again. And then if you'd like to learn more about Envision or ISI, we do have a free virtual conference that's held in October, and registration for that is open now. Last year, we had about 1,800 participants from 52 countries around the world. So it is a really nice conference. A lot of interesting people attend. We have a lot of good content that we're going to have this year. We should have an agenda sometime in August. And with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Hi, it looks like there's a question, Jennifer, from Eric. Eric, do you want to read this, or do you want me to read this to Jennifer? Happy either way.
Sure. I mean, I can read it.
Sure, thank you.
So yeah, Jennifer, I looked at your list of charter members. It looks like lots of consultants that support utilities across the nation, and it's great to see that they're involved. But it seems like in my discussions with other utilities, you know, we used to have pumps and motors that lasted 75 years, had repair parts available. Now it seems like we're moving kind of in the opposite direction, where we have pumps and motors that don't last as long. So how do we get vendors to participate in the Institute and kind of fix this planned or unplanned obsolescence issue that impacts our industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd say a couple things about that. First, we have a couple different types of members. So we have public agency members, and then we have the consulting types of members. And you're right, a lot of them are more like consulting firms, construction firms, engineering firms. So interesting that you ask that, because we are working on what is called the supplier directory, which hopefully will have more of those like supplier type members, or those organizations at least would be listing their supplies, or what word am I looking for? Things that they manufacture. I think that could help to start some of those conversations. And in addition to maybe bringing to the surface some organizations that do have equipment that is longer lasting. So the intent of that is to make connections for agencies and project teams that want, such as you say, equipment that lasts longer, or materials that have less sustainability impacts on the environment, so that we know they exist, so people know where to find them. But I think it also can start the conversations about what is really needed, because if we're not finding the things that the industry is looking for, then, I mean, hopefully that is telling them what they need to know. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So be on the lookout for that. It hopefully will be announcing it in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jennifer? I think Jennifer, can you talk a little more about if there were any challenges with implementing the framework with the utilities that were involved?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'll speak more in generalities. So I
Sure.
did work for a consulting firm for about 12 years before I joined ISI last year. So I worked on a lot of Envision projects. I mean, there are different kinds of challenges. I think there are some challenges related to getting people kind of on board with using the system. I do think one way to overcome that one, for example, is introducing it early, educating people, even using the system as an education tool. So what does sustainability look like? What are the terms that we're using? All of those kinds of things. We have also heard of agencies using Envision or the training for credentialing to educate people throughout their organization so that everybody is speaking that same sustainability language that can overcome a lot of barriers. Having a champion within the project, within the owner organization for Envision is very helpful, because that way things aren't necessarily falling through the cracks during project discussions. It's not that somebody is glossing over something that is really related to sustainability within the project when the project team is talking about things. Other challenges include, especially like, I'll take it back again to executing or starting to implement Envision later. The later it's started within a project, the more difficult it is for some credits. And in fact, some credits kind of just have to be taken off the table, because if you've already made a site selection and you happen to be located on prime farmland or somewhere there's a habitat of concern or something like that, you're probably not going to go find somewhere else to locate a project. So starting the conversation early can really help to overcome those kinds of things. But I mean, you have to start talking about it early. I guess I'll stop there. There's a few anyway.
Well, I think that was good. It looks like there is something in the main chat. Salil, do you want to ask the question?
Hi there, Antoinette and Jennifer.
Hi.
So I'm just curious. So one of the comments made earlier, this is a great presentation, by the way, was O&M is not as given a lot of consideration, but on the life cycle basis, 80% of the costs are in O&M for any asset, not in the capital purchase. Any thoughts of bringing in SMRP or reliability web approaches, which is purely based on asset maintenance?
Right. So, yeah, when I said that, so Envision doesn't have a module that looks at operations and maintenance. There has been discussions about that happening. I have a doubt that would happen anytime too soon. The one thing about Envision, though, is it does encourage project teams to have those conversations about what's going to happen in O&M. So having conversations about what kind of equipment you're choosing so that it's operating efficiently in O&M, so that long-term monitoring and maintenance plans are being put in place for asset management to make sure that the equipment is going to be maintained during operations and maintenance. So there's a lot of those credits that prompt the planning design teams to talk about those issues. And it also, the framework also asks for O&M representatives to be brought into those conversations, so that it's not just like a vacuum of something being designed and then a hot potato of, here, now you maintain this and good luck. It's supposed to be setting the project up for operations and maintenance success, essentially. So while it's not coming back and asking, how efficient the equipment actually was, the intent is to set it up for success. And again, I mean, there have been conversations about trying to bring a module like that in, but it hasn't happened yet.
Thanks, Jennifer and Salil. Well, we can go on with a couple of more questions that we do have. For those utilities on the line, and that's like my question, do any of you, I know many of you do use EUM. How many of you use both? I'm curious to see how many of you use both and how that's worked together. And Jennifer, while we wait, can you talk about how, if both tools are used, which ones do you think should be used? Like you said, with Envision, you believe that should be used at the beginning of a project. Can you talk a little more about how you perceive those being used together? And you also provided us with some great examples of of alignment, but can you go into a little more detail about some of the other things that you didn't touch upon?
I can try. Yeah, so I feel like there is, I mean, there's so much alignment between the two of them, although Envision, I would say, maybe a comment about where they diverge a little bit is that Envision is made for all types of infrastructure, so not water specific. So I think using them together helps to give that overall broad perspective, which also can be helpful for those projects that have those other elements, like, if it's a kind of multi-benefit project where it isn't all necessarily water perspective, it can bring that into the conversation. And then the EUM side can kind of take the concepts within Envision and make sure that they are that very water-centric types of detailed information that's needed. So perhaps kind of used in conjunction with each other so that you're getting that broad perspective and then kind of narrowing it down into what's really needed from a water specific aspect. And I mean, most projects do that anyway, because, if it's a transportation project, you'd be looking at what's very specific to that transportation need, or if it's an energy project, you'd be looking at how it's related specifically to energy project needs. So I think project teams ultimately do that, but EUM can give those project teams a leg up on the water side because you don't have to make it up. You kind of, you have your set of criteria that's water specific to lead you through it.
Great. So we have Ted, do you want to chime in with your question?
Sure. Thanks for your presentation. I'm just curious, as somebody who's been working in this field for some time, what do you see as the largest barriers for developers of a project, including or advancing options for green infrastructure or nature-based solutions? And like two things that come to my mind are sort of the time horizon and how far out you look, and then also just co-benefits. And I think you talked about that in some of the examples of why it was actually worthwhile, and some of those examples. But how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think probably the largest barrier, and maybe you kind of alluded to this, but is kind of the education aspect. So people perhaps not even knowing what opportunities are, and so having that conversation about what ifs. So I always say this, so if you've ever heard me speak before, you probably heard it, but my favorite part of working with a project team was to go through a project assessment, looking at Envision and getting them to ask the what if kind of questions, like the brainstorming where there's not really any bad answer, and letting people just come up with ideas of things that could be on a project. So not giving any reason why it shouldn't be. And so I think one of the barriers can be if it's just a business as usual project and nobody is asking or offering an opportunity for those what ifs, allowing people to kind of come up with those innovative options to be able to, to get to the same end, but with something new that hasn't been done before. And a lot of project teams, or, they might be wary of using something, a system or a kind of technology that hasn't been used before. And so saying it's okay to think about like what we haven't done before and see if it might fit our needs, and there might be value for this project in doing something like that. I think that I would say that's probably the biggest barrier. It's not that those solutions aren't out there. It's that people are a little bit afraid to try something new.
Thank you.
Eric, you want to chime in?
Sorry, I'm asking another question, but so on effective utility management, there's a self-assessment tool. On the 12 attributes, we can, as a utility, you can rank and then rate how we're doing in each of those attributes. It sounds like we do something similar for ISI, and I'm wondering if those utilities that have utilized this system, how they're ranking these attributes and kind of the sub attributes or subsections of these. And where do you see, where's the strongest focus and where's maybe a gap, or where improvements can be made? Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer it though. I guess I mean, this is going to be just an observation kind of an answer, but I think it kind of goes back to the last answer as well, where utilities tend to focus their priorities either on things that they've always done because that's the way that it's always been done, or on it's kind of the squeaky wheel kind of thing, who's yelling the loudest to get what they need. I do think that that's one benefit of using Envision and going through all the questions under the credits, because you bring all of those topics up and everybody can either say that's not something that we want to deal with, but at least the subjects are broached, because the problem really becomes when you get in a rut of doing the same thing the same way all the time and never offering an opportunity to do something new. I would guess that within Envision, water agencies struggle with the same things probably all the users do, and those are some of the more difficult things, like looking at embodied carbon and I mean, in some respects, social equity or stakeholder engagement, depending on the project type. When you're having a remote pump station, you don't really have that much for stakeholders. So, being that every project is different, I think some of those areas, those challenging areas, change from project to project as well. So I'm not answering very well where utilities need to focus more attention, but I mean, we deal with utilities small and large across the US and internationally, and it really does vary very much from, utility to utility.
Thank you.
Not trying to not answer the question, but
Great. Any more questions for Jennifer before we wrap up? I think I just have one for you, Jennifer, and for our utility members on the line about how valuable would a tool, comparing, like if this webinar were a tool comparing both, how valuable would that be to the utility members? I'm thinking what that would look like.
yeah, that would be great to know. I mean, we could definitely do a deeper dive into each of the attributes and like all of the credits that are related. I did a kind of deep dive for comparing Envision and LEAD similarly, I think, and looked at it both ways from the perspective of which credits, which LEAD credits are related to Envision and which Envision credits are related to each credit in LEAD. So it's definitely a possibility.
Okay, we can probably take that offline, but I was thinking about that as you were speaking. So Well, thank you again, Jennifer, for an excellent presentation. Our management committee chair, Marshall Brown, had an emergency, so he had to leave. I would like to ask either John Zimmerman, both, and Jeff Brown to come on to give some closing remarks. So again, thank you, Jennifer. If you have any other questions for Jennifer, please feel free to put those in the chat. Or email her at the email address that she has provided. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. You're on. John, are you? Yes, I see that you're on.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you, Jennifer. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us that presentation. It's very informative. And the examples from Denver, Westminster, and Santa Monica, I'm sorry. As a reminder, so today's webinar recording and the slides will be on the website by the end of the week. And it'll also be in AMWA's July 21st issue of the Monday morning briefing newsletter. Thank you all for participating today. Before we go, we have a short survey just to let us know how we did. We use that data to help us improve our programming. We'll give you a minute to go through that, and then I'll turn it over to Jeff Brown, our subcommittee chair.
Thanks, John. I agree that Jennifer did an excellent job. We use the EUM framework at my utility, and it certainly helps our team foster accountability with one another, our customers, governing board, and other stakeholders. I encourage you to access AMWA resources and upcoming events that support utility innovation and leadership. We've had really informative webinars this year, and you can access them 24/7 at the AMWA website. For fellow AMWA utility members in the line, we know you are doing innovative work in your systems, and we invite you to showcase some of your best practices in a webinar or a white paper. Also, please get in your award applications by this Friday. They're due Friday, July 18th. You can email Antoinette for more information. Her email is in the chat. And, you know, a great way to engage is in person, which you can do at our upcoming 2025 Executive Management Conference in Austin, Texas on October 27th through 29th. Our registration is now open, and I encourage you to review our robust agenda online. I'm confident you're going to find content of interest and you won't be disappointed. So thank you so much again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody for filling out the survey. We will see you. The next management committee meeting is September 23rd, and we look forward to seeing you. So thanks, Jeff, John, and again, Jennifer. Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.